What is up guys, today on this video I'll be showing you how to make a customized Game Boy Color, changing the housing and giving it a holographic shiny effect. So without further ado, let's go ahead and completely mod this Game Boy Color. Right, so I have all the materials that I need to do this modification, and I'm just going to break down of what things that I do have. So the first thing is obviously the Game Boy Color, and I got this for about £45, which is slightly cheaper than what most people sell these at nowadays. I got this on eBay, so you can probably find one yourself just on an auction. People do sell them cheaper than what retailers resell them as. We got the hard shell here, so this is the Aurora shell, which has like a shine to it when you view it at a different angle. Almost like an oil slick effect on the case, and it's all transparent and clear. Picked this up at AliExpress for about £15 I believe, and it comes with all the buttons and fixtures for the case. Next up we have this this is a transparent lens, and what I've done is I've put a holographic vinyl over it to give it that glittery, shiny effect, as you can see. So this actually is just a plain glass backing, and the logo where it says Game Boy Color, that's see-through as well. So when I put the IPS screen, the light should also shine through the logo, which is a cool little touch. Now these are very hard to find, actual holographic ones, unless it's Game Boy Advance. So I wanted that effect, which is why I got the vinyl sticker for it as well, which is this stuff here. I will show you how I've actually applied this holographic vinyl onto this lens later in the video, but this is sort of like just see-through sticker. You can kind of see the effect here, and you can also use nail art foil or nail art sticker. Well, you need to make sure they are adhesive, because some of them aren't adhesive, but that is your cheaper option than to get an A4 bit of holographic sticker. I got a set of 5 which cost me around £6. This is imperfect sheets, so I got this for a lot cheaper than what they actually should sell it for. I might use this for the case. I may try and cut this behind this shell here, which is going to be kind of difficult because there's quite a lot of sort of nooks and crannies that I need to cut in between, so I'm not too sure if I'm going to do that, but we'll see. We'll give it a go, see how it turns out. This case actually came with a standard plastic cover, but I'm not going to use that. Here we have the IPS screen, and this has the points where you can change the brightness. So there's buttons where you change the brightness, and also the colour as well. There's different colour palettes for this IPS screen. Now you can get others than this. This one is slightly bigger than your normal IPS screen. So what I'm going to have to do is cut through the case of the Aurora shell. There's some bits where I need to cut just to make this fit. You don't have to do this if you get a different one, but I do have to make modifications to the case. And I also picked this up from AliExpress for around just over £40. So this isn't very cheap. It's not a cheap mod. Altogether, the materials probably cost anywhere between 80 to 90, I would say almost £100 just to do this modification, which is why resellers sell these for £150 or above, because the time it takes and the materials aren't cheap. But you can get a cheaper IPS screen if you desire to. It comes with extra wires, so if this kind of breaks, you can resolder a new wire to the board. Some of the tools that I have: a arts and craft sharp knife to cut through the case, a tri-wing screw, Phillips Screwdriver, a pry tool, a ruler, and some pliers as well. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to open this Game Boy Color. So make sure the batteries are out, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws that I need to take out. Okay, once the screws are out, just pry it open. We don't need to worry about the back just yet. Remove the power button. Try not to lose any of these pieces. And we've got the ribbon cable for the LCD, and then a couple of Phillips head screws here. We're going to remove this tab. You've got to just lift these sides open, and with your fingers, let's just open that. Let's just lift up the tab, and that should just disconnect. Once that is done, we can actually unscrew some of these. There's only 3 screws holding down the board. Be careful not to strip any of these screws, because you're going to have to drill this out. I know some of these screws can be quite flimsy. Once those screws are out at the bottom, you can just lift up the actual board itself. It's quite easy, it all just comes off as a whole. And then we've got the button bits here, we can actually just remove them. So I could use some of the new buttons, which are exactly the same colour. Thinking I should have bought some different colour screws just to make this a bit more unique, but we're going to just go for the black buttons, I guess. So with this one, I'm not going to put the buttons on this because I need to actually cut this off, and then the top bit I can actually just leave this to a side. I can remove the infrared thing, which I think everything comes with the package. Maybe I will just use the new buttons in there just because they're better condition. You don't really need to remove any of this unless you don't have any buttons. Then just remove all the buttons, and it's quite tricky to get this off. I mean, we don't really need this screen. I'm just going to remove this so it doesn't go everywhere. Best way to remove this glass screen is to use a heat gun, which I do have, but I'm probably not going to bother trying too hard to remove this because I can resell this as a unit. If anyone needs the original screen, don't want to bother using the IPS screen, I can just resell the case as it is, so I can probably just leave this. But if you want to know how to remove this IPS, well, this screen here as well as the glass lens, then I will again put another video up on the description just to show you how to do that. The easiest way to do that without a heat gun is to kind of twist the case, and you can hear the adhesive loosening up. But what you don't want to do is get a pry tool and try and lift it up like this, because you're going to crack the screen. So bear that in mind. If you need to preserve the screen or remove it somehow, that's how you do it. You need to install battery compartment onto this. So backplate goes here, there's battery compartment that goes this way. So you just slot that in here. Need some 4 little screws. So I've got the back plate for the cartridge on. There's the 4 screws and the battery compartment. Right, we need to make some modifications to the case. That's what we need to do next before we start putting everything in there. Right, time to cut some of this off. So mainly where the D-pad is and at the top of the seam here. I forgot to mention I also have a pair of these, which are kind of like wire cutters. So you definitely need a pair of these to cut some of the case if you have the same IPS screen as me. My advice is just to go gentle, not try to be too forceful with the case, because you might crack one bit of the case where you really didn't want it to crack. So just go slowly with this procedure and just kind of just work your way and try and cut some of the plastic so it loosens off. So I'm just making like grooves here. Eventually you'll be able to just rip it off the case, as you can see here. It's just wiggling, cutting and wiggling as I go around. Managed to get rid of that part of the D-pad, and once you've got that off, you can actually just use like a metal scraper and just file it down a bit, or some sandpaper as well will also work, but try not to scratch some of the case when you're at it. So the next part is I need to get rid of the plastic bit at the top here, so I can also put one of the sensor buttons on each or either side. So again, with your wire clippers, just slowly cut through this. Right, so here is the modified case. I think I went a bit overboard here. I don't think I needed to cut as much as I did here. So the front of it, you can obviously see where I've cut. So that's the only downside of using this IPS screen, is that you do have to make some sacrifices of the case. This bit here was already cut out, so I didn't need to bother with this, but that's the only downfall of having this screen, is you're gonna have to cut a lot of this case, so just be wary of that. So I also made sure just to file this down as well, just to give it a cleaner look. So right now I think I might try, let's see if I can do this, let's see if I can somehow cut a little bit of this and try and install it underneath. I'm not too sure how well this is going to work out, but let's see if this works. Well, this is the best I can get it. It's not perfect. Just laid it down and just kind of cut around the edges. I think it looks okay. Once I have the board in place, it shouldn't be too bad. And then get rid of the bubbles by just kind of pressing on it, making sure there's no overlays or bubbles. But I think I'm going to leave it as that. I'm not going to bother with the top bit. I don't want it too shiny. So I think that'll do. We are ready to install the screen. So let's try and put this on. Here's our screen. Now, before we do anything, we just need to apply this insulating film. So we need this on the back of the LCD display. Just like so. Now this, here's the board. This actually just connects. Pretty sure that's the right way. Because this will then fold over the back. buttons are on. I'm just going to remove this film and also apply the double-sided sticky tape on each top and bottom of the screen. There we go. Now I'm going to stick the LCD display down. As you can see, it just fits where the D-pad is. Need to make sure this is center as well. So before you stick it on, make sure you are centering the screen. So just double check, flip it over and double check that you're position it right. Okay, let's attach the board onto the screen, or the screen onto the board, shall I say. Oops. The problem is every time you move it, it might be misaligned. This is the trickiest part, is to keep this in place. Right, once you've lined the board and the screen in place, so make sure it's all straight and not wonky, we need to stick the sensor buttons for the brightness and color palette on the left and the right side. It's best to use some tweezers for this because it's super awkward. I've managed to stick on these contacts above here. I did have trouble, one of them wasn't sticking very well, so all I did was get some double-sided sticky tape again and stuck it where the infrared cap is. So that seems to be fine now. You just have to be careful, obviously keep looking at the front just to see if the screen is straight. That looks fine. I think I can put the board in now. So I should actually test the screen before I screw everything on, but let me just press it down a bit further, connect the ribbon cable. Since I put that on, the screen has misaligned, annoyingly. Let's actually just test this out then. Let's quickly put some batteries in. It does work, but we need to move the screen again, unfortunately. I seem to have fixed this issue here. Yes, it is a lot better than before. The screws are back in. Can't forget the start button. Right, we can actually assemble the back plate, but before I do that, let's put some more holographic tape over the information sticker at the back. You can actually get these on Etsy, so people actually make holographic prints of these. If you don't want to do this, you can actually just buy holographic Game Boy Color stickers, but mind you, they aren't cheap. So we've pretty much got the same effect here as to the other ones. It's a bit awkward because you have to cut around it. I think that looks pretty good. They also provided a serial number as well, because there was no way I was getting this one off. Oh I would definitely ruin that sticker. Okay, last is the battery cover. I'm not too sure if I'm going to cover this with more holographic stuff. I mean, I can see what it looks like with it on. I don't know if it'd be too much shiny. It's just quite simple just to put a layer underneath, you see. And this might be over the top, but we'll see what it looks like. Cool, so there's a back cover, or battery pack cover. You can really only just apply it once, because if you mess around with it too much, you can see all the bubbles underneath. Alright, so I think I'm happy with all of this. There's a couple of bubbles here, I just need to get rid of them. Let's start putting this back together. The last thing I'm going to leave is the bezel. The last thing I need to do is install the bezel and we're all good. This stuff is super sticky, so you have to be careful when you apply it. Oh, fuck. I almost accidentally stuck this on the wrong side, so you need to make sure where there's like a little gap here, that's where the power button is. Give the screen a little wipe before you apply the lens bezel. And there we go. I think I need to remove the screen up a little bit because I can kind of see, or just remove some of that sticky tape because I kind of see that sticky tape here. But all good so far. Looks to be working. So this is the final result. I think it's turned out pretty well. I did have some issues with the screen. I had to open it several times just to realign the screen so it was level. Another thing that I had to do was cut a part of this D-pad here, so just shaved a little bit off the plastic because every time I pressed up it was slightly touching the edge of the screen. And I also put some insulating tape just behind one of the contacts here because that was also touching the screen. Everything is very tight in there. There's not much room where the screen can move, so if you do this mod, be wary of that. You do have to make some adjustments just to fit this in. You can kind of see here where it stops. It stops here as well. But I'm happy with the result. The bezel could be better, where you can see some lines here, but next time I think I should just make a outline of the bezel, kind of measure it and then just do it in one take. So you can also see the holographic effect shining underneath the case here. It's quite subtle, you can't really see it in a dark room, but I had to clean this up as well because some of the stickers were overlapping each other and it was very hard to scalpel around the button layout, but I think it's turned out pretty well. Like I said, it's quite subtle, it's not too eye-soaring. On the back here, we also got that on the battery cover as well, and also the sticker. And just to show you that the contacts work, I think there's about 8 different colours that you can cycle through, and there's about maybe 5 different brightness levels. So that's the lowest level. 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, 7, 8. I mean, it doesn't really get too bright. Oops. So yeah, there you go guys. If you do have any questions about this modification, then please comment down below. I hope this tutorial has been useful for you. And yeah, I'll see you again on another video.